Andersonville National Historical Site is the grounds of a national cemetery for POWs and any war veterans from the United States. It's got a POW museum in it, showing the different way people was in prison or war camps, and also it's the site of the actual Andersonville prison, a Civil War prison camp that the Confederates ran. So join DNC McTravels as we go over and look at this historical spot. This museum is run and operated by the National Park Service. Here we are, the National Prisoner of War Museum. We are at Andersonville Prison. Andersonville Prison was the site of a Civil War prison camp that the Confederates ran. That was a very deadly camp. Once you were in it, chances are you didn't go home. This is a prisoner of war museum in honor of all prisoners from the wars, all wars.
Began as a result of the conditions which caused the deaths of thousands of Union prisoners of war held captive at Camp Sumter. The first death to occur was that of Adam Swarner on February 27, 1864. Private Swarner, a member of the 2nd New York Cavalry, had been held in Confederate prisons in Richmond, Virginia since his capture in September 1863. Swarner was among the first prisoners to be transferred to the new prison in Georgia and arrived ill and dying. By the time the war ended in the spring of 1865, nearly 13,000 men had been laid to rest in these acres. They were buried in trench graves, shoulder to shoulder. The graves were marked with a small wooden board with the number of the grave carved on it. The number corresponded to the dead roll kept by the Confederate surgeons, the task being actually assigned to a paroled prisoner. Dorrance Atwater, a comrade of Adam Swarner's in the 2nd New York Cavalry, kept the dead roll for most of the time he was at Andersonville. Each historic stone marks the grave of an Andersonville prisoner. It is hard to believe that the twist of fate responsible for taking these men's lives was a prisoner of war camp that was only in operation for 14 months. The now serene historic site provides a beautiful setting to contemplate the sacrifices of the men who died here, and also provokes thought as to what drives men to war and allows such places as prisoner of war camps to exist. Andersonville to assist with the work. The process of marking the graves was completed by mid-August. Today, Andersonville National Cemetery remains operational. Veterans of the United States Armed Forces may be buried here along with their spouse and minor dependents. Basic requirements are that the veterans must have been on active duty for more than 180 days, and if discharged, the discharge must have been under conditions other than dishonorable. Please remember that the 27-acre cemetery contains the remains of men and women who have served this country in all branches of the United States military. Please show proper respect by keeping your voices low, by not sitting or standing on the headstones or monuments, and by walking at all times. You may...
Now we're going to go into the camp. Andersonville, or Camp Sumter, as it was known officially, held more prisoners than any given time than any other Confederate military prison. It was built in the early 1864 after Confederate officials decided to move a large number of federal prisoners in and around Richmond to a place of greater security and more abundance of food. During the 14 months of its existence, more than 45,000 Union soldiers were confined here. Of these, almost 13,000 died from disease, poor sanitation, malnutrition, overcrowding, and exposure from the elements. As you see right here, this is the line where the prison walls used to be. And this was called the dead line. The dead line that kept prisoners back from the wall of the stockade was marked by a simple fence. Prisoners who crossed the line were shot by the sentries, who sat in pigeon roosts located every 90 feet along the wall. The men, the prisoners, were then antagonized by the Confederate soldiers. They would start throwing food and rations into the dead zone, and when they would cross to get them because they were simply starving, they would shoot them on the spot. Providence Spring. In the summer of 1864, tens of thousands of Union POWs were dying of thirst at the military prison in Andersonville, Georgia. Suddenly, a spring erupted from the ground within the stockade. The POWs credited its appearance to a divine intervention, and a Providence Spring became part of the established lore of the Civil War. The spring was enclosed within a large stone shelter by the Union Veterans Group in 1901. Fancy marble slabs flanking the spring have grown stained and encrusted with impurities in the water over the years. The prisoners cried for thirst, rang up into heaven, reads one of several inscriptions. God heard with his thunder cleft the earth and poured his sweetest water to start gushing here. A small stream called Stockade Branch flowed through the stockade. This water source, however, flowed through two Confederate encampments and the prison bakery house before it reached the prisoners. Once it reached the stockade, it was the only drinking supply to wash clothes, bathe in, and also they would go to the bathroom around it, so it would basically cause the water to be very bad. The Star Fort served as a Confederate headquarters for the Andersonville prison due to its location on a hill that offered a bird's eye view of the prison grounds. The earthen fort was armed with 9 cannons, technically called 3-inch ordnance rifles, with a range of half a mile. 4 of the guns were pointed away from the prison to help fight off any Union cavalry attack. The other 5 guns were aimed at the prison. Though eroded over time, the outline of the Star Fort earthen walls can still be seen. As you walk or drive around the prison, you will see similar forts at all 4 corners, while the Star Fort serves as the command center for the prison itself. The purpose of the other forts was to protect the prison from possible Union attacks. They called these pigeon roost, where they would shoot them if they crossed the deadline. They called them a pigeon roost. These were called shebangs. That's all they had to keep them from the sun, rain. As you see, we're in the dead zone right now. And the sharpshooters or shooters would shoot you dead if they caught you inside this area. This is considered the dead zone. Sometimes the Confederate soldiers would throw food down in this area to the starving Union men, and they would try to sneak and get it, and they would shoot them dead and then laugh. wasn't one of the better things to happen here. Not too much good did happen here. It's more of a death camp. Unfortunately, the Union had one a little like this up in the northern part. History of our country. I'd like to thank you all for joining us on this tour of Andersonville Prison, Confederate Prison of War Camp. This shows some of our history, how America was formed and how we fought for our freedoms, and how you should be proud to be an American because we fought hard to keep what we have here. And I'd like to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining McTravels, DNC McTravels. Have a nice day. Bye.